Apple just released a paper called The Illusion of Thinking, and it's caused serious waves. According to their research, some of the smartest AI models may not actually be reasoning at all. They tested what are known as large reasoning models, models that break problems down into structured thought steps using prompts like chain of thought. These LRMs seemed promising at first, especially on tasks of medium difficulty. But once the complexity ramped up, something unexpected happened. The models didn't just struggle, they collapsed. Even when handed the right algorithm, for example, the Tower of Hanoi solution, they still failed to execute it when the problem became more complex. Apple called this a complete accuracy collapse and questioned whether we're just fooling ourselves into believing these models are thinking. But is it really that simple? Let's unpack both sides of the debate. First, the community responded fast. A counterpaper titled The Illusion of Thinking argued that Apple's conclusions were based on flawed test design. One point was that many of the so-called failures were caused not by a lack of reasoning, but by hitting token limits, especially when models were forced to spell out every step in verbose language. Second, some tasks in Apple's benchmark were inherently unsolvable or unclear. For instance, in the six-person river crossing problem, there's no valid solution given the stated constraints, yet the model was penalized anyway. And when researchers prompted the same models to simply write code instead of explaining their reasoning in long form, they completed many of the puzzles correctly, suggesting the models do understand the underlying logic, just not under Apple's chosen test conditions. Still, Apple made some valid points. These models can struggle with scaling logical structure, and it's true that many reasoning chains break down under pressure. They sometimes hallucinate steps or lose track of goals entirely. Apple's paper reminds us not to overhype these models as thinkers when they are still fundamentally pattern predictors. But here's the key. None of that means reasoning models are useless. In fact, some of the best performing AI tools today, from coding assistants to legal summarizers to RAG-based knowledge tools, rely heavily on structured reasoning, whether it's tree of thought, program-aided prompting, or simply breaking complex queries into steps. These approaches offer real gains in medium complexity tasks. What Apple's research really highlights is the fragility of reasoning when it's forced into narrow prompt formats, especially without tool use or memory. But the future of reasoning models likely lies in hybrid systems, models that combine language reasoning with symbolic tools, APIs, external memory, code execution, or even search engines. These hybrids don't rely on guessing the next token. They reason by design, not by prediction. And that's where the real progress is happening. So yes, reasoning AIs today are imperfect. They can fail in surprising and even dumb ways. But to call them an illusion might be missing the point. What we're seeing isn't fake thinking. It's the first step towards something more powerful, structured, explainable, and tool-assisted reasoning. And maybe, just maybe, in this debate isn't only technical. It raises a deeper, almost philosophical question. What exactly is reasoning? How do we define thinking? And where does that leave the line between intelligent behavior and actual consciousness? Because let's be honest, even human thinking is based on patterns. We respond to the world based on the data our brains have collected. We reproduce ideas, beliefs, logic, all shaped by experience and input. So if an AI does the same in its own way, is that really so different? We're not saying these models are conscious, not even close, but questioning their reasoning abilities forces us to reflect on our own. What do you think? Is Apple right to question reasoning AIs? Or are we just seeing growing pains in a promising direction? Let us know in the comments. And if you're into deep AI discussions without the hype, subscribe for more. This is AI Vibes. See you in the next one.